Welcome to the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a show that is a central hub and safe space for authors to share their stories. The Bold Book with Dr. Denise begins now.
Welcome back to another episode of Bold Book of the Day. This show is for anyone looking for inspiration. And of course, you know, my name is Dr. Denise Nicholson. And today I have this great interview, this great conversation with Mr. Jerry Giordano. And I can't wait for you guys to hear what Jerry does. So he is the author of this powerful, raw, incredible, relatable story. And of course, his the name of this book is these Your 7 Words to a Happier You. And we did a little exercise this morning, and I can't tell you how incredible, impactful it has been already. And it was just a few minutes ago. So I can't wait for you guys to hear how deeply impactful this has been and how it can change your life. So please welcome Jerry Giordano to the stage. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Denise. Great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, what a wonderful work that you've, curated. Can you really take us back to the moment you realized something in your life needed to change? What led you to that?
Uh, I don't know if there's a moment. There's a lot of moments. I grew up right outside New York City, suburb of New Jersey, and I grew up in a normal life, and everything seemed like it was fine. My parents were together for a long time. My grandparents, but if you're looking back at my life, I had a easy childhood, but there was something in part of me that never felt I was whole. When that toy, remember the movie Toy Story came out?
Uh-huh.
I just remember watching that movie and saying, I feel like the broken toys in the box, like the broken toys that were at the bottom of the box that they kind of discarded. That's how I felt. So it was very strange when I saw that movie. It almost was a visual analogy of what's going on in here. It seemed strange. But I was always a likable person. I always had friends. I had all these things, but I never felt like I had self-worth or self-value, self-esteem. Although everyone around me thought I always did, and inside is where I did. So,
Would you say that even though you had a normal life, you didn't feel normal?
right, exactly. And I didn't know why. It just felt like there was something that I didn't feel that I should be more content than I was, or it was an empty somehow. Which is why I started reading self-help books in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to radio psychiatry in New York City on the day. I was addicted to radio talk show documentaries
Wow. At very young age.
in my early mid-20s when I started it. Just I was had this feeling that I was broken somehow, but I didn't know how. I needed to fix myself.
Do you now realize that you were not broken?
I now I realize a long time ago I didn't know it. I felt like I like to say I was insides by everybody else. If you look at other people, I thought everybody else got together except me.
Wow.
It's not true, but that's what I thought. And even in my career, where I was successful advertising career, copywriter, creative, in New York, in Chicago, LA, Austin, Dallas, I came across as confident, and I came across as I like to say you can fake it till you make it in the business world, but not in your personal life.
As a result of those feelings, what happened to you?
Well, I was going along in my life. I got married, I got divorced, I got remarried, I had 3 kids with my second wife. You just think whatever happens now, keep moving. You just buy a house, go buy Chicago to LA, buy a house, have 3 kids. You just keep going and moving.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize I was sleepwalking through all. And I talk about that in the book. And the reason I call it was because once I uncovered this quote unquote reason, I never felt like I was the reason I felt like I was broken. That woke me up. I like to say I woke up in the middle of the day where I was. So I was that sleeper through all those years. What happens next? What happens next? And I woke up.
Yeah. You mentioned that you were in the darkest place imaginable. What did rock bottom look like for you, and what did it feel like?
Well, I never had panic attacks, which I don't recommend. wasn't on my bucket. It was my bucket list. Let's put it that way. I felt like my whole just crumbled in. Just everything fell on. And I talk about this in the book because I was going through that sleepwalking. Like I was saying, going from this to this. I had 3 kids. I wound up getting divorced from my wife for 20 years. I met this woman, thought the love of my life. This was the person who actually got me. She was, caring and loving, all that stuff. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, after 2 marriages, all of a sudden I've had this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life. And everything was great. Then my mom in 2017, January, and then 12 days later, I got a breakup email from the fiance, 4.5 years. So that's where the world is. So by the end of January 2017, I was depressed. I was at rock bottom. If there were other things going, those two things just pull the foundation out.
Right. Wow. So you talked about 3 meditations that changed everything. Is that when you started to look for answers, or you already had these type of exercises and habits to help you cope?
No, I didn't really have coping. I didn't have coping mechanisms for. In retrospect, my 7 words was a coping mechanism, but it was, as they say, epic fail. I mean, that was my sabotage.
Yeah.
About. But I had tried to meditate for literally 20 years. And October of 2016, 4 months before my world fell apart, I sat down and I started meditating. And I like to say that the universe knew that come January 2018, there was no way I was going to be meditating.
Right.
Wasn't going to happen. So it gave me that 4-month runway, like, of meditation. So I was meditating in the morning, at night, from October, November, December, January. So come the end of January, the whole world fell apart. I was meditating.
You mean January of 2020 or 20? What year was that?
No, 2018.
2018. What happened what was going on with the world at that time? Because I don't remember.
I don't remember. The only thing I saw was I was in a black hole. I was.
So that's okay. So your world fell apart. Okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to breathe.
Wow. So what were the 7 words that your inner child believed, and how did they end up shaping your new life?
Well, I'm going to step back for a second and explain how I got to this word, because it's not a linear journey.
Right.
You know, it's not a linear journey at all. I was, like I said, I was in that dark place. I couldn't stop crying. I was one of those people who could cry. I mean, I cried at movies, I cried on commercials, I cried at TV shows, but personal stuff, I didn't really cry. That was my sabotage myself. So I just pushed stuff down and pushed it down. And after I hit that bottom, I couldn't stop crying. I just don't. I couldn't put it down, or I couldn't hold it anymore. I grew up in an Italian guy from North New Jersey. Not exactly, the transformational thinking. So I was never really taught how to deal with my feelings. And I'm not alone. I know people I've talked to over the years aren't really taught how to deal with their feelings. I think most of us grew up with.
Most of us.
Here, I'll give you something to know. That kind of thing. But when that rock bottom hit, I couldn't stop crying. I'd be meditating. 10 seconds into meditation, I would just be bawling my eyes out. I would pull up to red light, and something would hit me, and I'd start crying. Go into a gas station, I'd ride in the back of it, just let it all out. And I talked about
you had no idea. You had no idea what was causing this. These emotions, overwhelming emotions.
Well, it's interesting because at first I really didn't know. I knew it was connected to the dark place I was in, black hole.
Yeah.
But while I was going through this, some friends of mine said, well, you're depressed, you had panic attacks, you should go to a doctor and take antidepressants. I've never been that person. So I just, during I was in a meditation, and the meditation, I remember it saying, just feel whatever you feel. Whatever shows up, And I took that to heart. The first time I realized that all this pushing this feeling down over those decades never worked. I might as well try something else.
Yeah.
So I tried feeling, and I did.
Yeah.
And then I had these 3 meditations along the way that kind of turned things around, or began to turn things around.
Can you walk us through one of them?
Yeah, I'll walk you through. This second meditation was just a voice that came in from, it was a famous voice, James Earl Jones or stuff like that. It was just a voice, and the voice said, "You gave your power away your whole life so other people would like you or love you." And I went, wow, that's
The
great.
voice said that. You didn't read that anywhere.
I was in my meditation. My meditations last 17 minutes when I meditate, and in that meditation was a voice that came down.
Wow.
And that's all it said. After the meditation, I put down in the journal that I was taking, and just let it. I just said, okay, that means anything. The third meditation, the second one, the third meditation was a vision of me walking on a bike path or a walking path, and there's a man in front of me, and he's holding the hand of this little kid, and I'm following them around about 15 yards behind them, and they turn around and they sit down on a park bench, and it's revealed that the man at the time was me at that age in 2017, and the little child was 3 or 4 years old was me when I was 3 or 4. So it was a vision of me watching me sitting with a little version of me. I like to call him Little Jerry.
Wow.
And the little Jerry, 3 or 4-year-old, starts crying, and he's saying, "I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I can't carry this anymore." Big Jerry starts crying. "I don't know what it is, but I promise I'll help you, whatever it is." And we're both crying, and I'm sitting there watching Big Jerry and Little Jerry crying. And that was the end of the minute.
And those came to you in meditation?
Yes.
Like a vision?
Yes, and I hadn't really had visuals in my meditation before. Up until that point, I never really had those. I would see colors sometimes, but not visions like that.
Did your 7 words framework come up during those meditations?
No.
How did you arrive to the 7
Well,
words?
I had that because I had those. I didn't. There's a first meditation that's in the book that that's a setup for the second and third one.
Mm-hmm.
So my background is advertising, marketing, branding, and for these years of advertising as a creative person, I'm used to having a blank page.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my job is to fill a blank page with something that's going to turn, a product around or whatever my assignment is. So I was used to having a blank page. So I had a blank page. I had 3 foundational pieces, these 3 meditations. I even waited 2 weeks after the third one to see the other one, but there wasn't.
Oh,
So I said,
okay.
okay, I have these 3 meditations. So as looking at these 3 meditations, I said, where do I start? Well, I looked at the meditation. I realized that the person who was in most stress was little 3 or 4-year-old Jerry, right? He was the one who was crying. He didn't want to take it anymore.
Yeah.
So that's where I started. So then I started researching 3-year-olds. It turns out that 3 doctors, researchers, they call the age 3 the magic age, which I didn't know. I have 3 kids. They were all 3 years apart, and they were all 3 at one time. This 3-3-3 thing going on.
Yeah, yeah.
But what was going on at 3? So all signs pointed to 3-year-old little Jerry, who was on that park bench. I realized that there's something. So I started doing a deep dive into age 3. And it turns out age 3, again, there's all this information that comes up about age 3. I was in information gathering. Like when people ask me, say, what do you do? I like to tell people I'm a collector, inspector, connector of dots. That's what I do. I connect dots. So I was collecting information. 3-year-old Jerry going on. At 3 years old, we have something called magic think that we created at Magic. So if you see a 3-year-old and a 3-year-old girl is dressed like Wonder Woman, and you went up to her and you said, "Oh, you're dressed like Wonder Woman. You're playing Wonder Woman," and she'll say, "No, I am Wonder Woman.
Yes.
I'm playing Wonder Woman."
Yeah.
So that's part of the 3-year-old thing. They believe in magic things, and they believe in cause and effect. If I put on the stove at that age, they I'm going to burn my hand. So all this stuff started coming up. So I did a deep dive and started realizing that have you ever heard of Carl inner child?
What is it?
The term inner child.
Oh, yes, all the time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Carl Jung created the term inner child. So I started doing a deep dive into inner child and Carl Jung.
Mm-hmm.
And all this stuff started coming on. And then, I know you know who Maya Angelou is, right? You've heard of Maya Angelou?
Oh, all the time. Yes, she's one of my favorite.
Yeah. So during my research, a quote from Maya Angelou came. And the quote is, people will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did. They'll never forget how you made them feel. How you made them feel.
Yes. Yes.
And that was another light bulb. That became another foundation stuff to connect. Then I went into this whole dive. What was little Jerry doing when he was 3 or 4 years old that was trying to help get to the place of why he was so upset? And I do get into more detail in the book, but our process here, well, just to go back for 1 second, when we're 3 or 4 years old, there's no logic going on. Because logic doesn't occur until we're 5 or 6. So at 3 and 4, there's really no logic. We don't have the capacity for logic.
Right.
So it's all emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started looking back and said, what was little Jerry feeling when he was 3 years old? Well, when I was 3, right when I turned 3, my mom had a new baby. And so I was the person that the from 0 to 2 to 3, I was the person who got all that attention.
Yeah.
When I was 3, the paradigm shift was to my little sister. So now she was getting all the attention, and rightfully so, right? It's a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So mom is back in the 24/7 feeding cycle, the 24/7 diaper change cycle, taken to the doctors, up all night. And so little Jerry is now more on his own.
Yes.
Because mom didn't have the attention. And again, I'm skipping over a little bit. We only have a limited amount of time. But that's where the story came from, the 7 words. What was little Jerry feeling? Right? So for me personally, I felt like I was invisible because my mom wasn't paying attention.
You felt like it was the end of the world?
Well, if that was invisible, not paying attention to me, what's going on? I must be invisible. I'm still invisible. Well, what is invisible making me feel? And again, feel logical. I know my mom loved me, right? But what was I feeling? I felt invisible. And then I felt that made me feel love. So the next one was connecting those things of the 3-year-old, right? Cause and effect for a 3-year-old. If I do this, then this happens. I think magically, right? If I put milk and cookies out for, on Christmas Eve, I'm going to get presents. If I put teeth under my pillow, I'm going to get a quarter, and now it's probably $20.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, the cause and effect is what you say. So now I don't want to feel invisible, don't want to feel in love. So then I ask myself this question: how can little Jerry, get this love from mom that I wasn't getting because of my sister, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I felt like, well, I can't get love until I get attention. I mean, that's good. That's the rule for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't get somebody to like you. You have to say first, pay attention to you. So I meditated on it. I did a deep dive into this whole, and I came up with the fact that Jerry had to be like. So I wrote down the word like. So at some point I had invisible and love, likable. It's like, okay, now Jerry has to be like. My 4th word became control. Now I have to control being likable in all situations. I can't. I realized that going through this process. I realized that even in my life, I realized I couldn't be likable all the time. And then the controlling that was my 5th word. My 6th word became what did I do likable didn't work in my life, right? When I feel like I was looking back at this in my life, like, well, what did you do when somebody wasn't buying your likable? Nobody said it. Well, Harry, you're not likable, right? Didn't say, well, you're not likable. It was an instinct. It was a feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when I get this feeling that somebody's not liking me, and that was the end of the world for me, our 6th word became something we either do or become.
Mm.
So I started looking back at all my relationships in my life. What did I do when somebody didn't like me, or I didn't think they might not like me? What did I do? And I hated confrontation. Even the slightest confrontation, hated it.
Yeah.
And then, so I the meditation on it, and I realized when things didn't go my way, I became subordinate. So, not to rock the boat, if somebody didn't like me, I became subordinate. Now, again, they didn't say they didn't like me.
Right. You're creating these stories. Yeah.
Yeah, I got this feeling, wait a second, I'm getting those stink eyes. Somebody keeps looking at me the wrong way. They're not responding the way I hoped. I went to subordinate. And that's where I stayed. I stayed in a subordinate situation. And every relationship in my life, I had to be likable. When it didn't work, I went to subordinate. And then my 2 marriages and the relationship with the fiance, I went from that likable to subordinate. And it sabotaged me. So that sabotage, as the word was a sabotage team. And then the 7th word is repeat. Then I went back to invisible on love, likable, control, back to subordinate, back to repeat. So if you look at that my whole life, that was my story psyche, right? That was my story. Be likable, control it, falls apart, become subordinate. So when I looked at that thing, and I said, that's my whole life in 7 words. I did it in all my relationships. And it never served me. I didn't like being in that place. But I did it automatically. So the first line in the book is from Carl Jung. And it says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct your life and you'll call it fate. So when I talked earlier about the sleepwalking, remember I was saying I was sleepwalking? Well, I was sleepwalking because I had to be visible, unloved, likable, subordinate, repeat. That was the sleepwalk.
Yeah.
From one relationship to the next. And I totally 100% believe that if I hadn't come up with it after the fiance breakup and all that, I would have found another relationship, same thing. And
because you didn't realize that you were doing the same thing repeatedly in the relationships. You didn't realize you had a pattern.
I had no idea. I just felt like, wow, another relationship.
Yes.
And didn't know why. And then once I figured out what these 7 words were, I said, well, that's my whole life in 7 words. Now, that little Jerry was crying. I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I can't do this anymore. But what was he carrying? He was carrying that story, that 7-word cycle that's going to get you up in attention that never worked.
Yeah.
So that was what little Jerry was carrying. So when he was 3 and 13, 23, 33, I've done the words with hundreds of people. The youngest was 30, and the oldest was 90.
Oh, wow.
Every single person got their 7 words. And the irony is that the 13-year-old got it faster than anyone else.
I wonder why. Youth.
I sat down and got myself, wow. I wasn't even sure a 13-year-old could get it. Once I realized, well, he's only 10 years away from creating this 7 words, 3 or 4. he was closer to it than anyone else.
Okay, so it was easier for him to get it so quickly.
Unconsciously, he had that to do it, and he was so much closer. He hadn't had those decades I had of just pushing it down and pushing it down. And I did the work with a 75-year-old woman, and the first thing she said to me, "I wish I had learned this 50 years ago."
It's never too late. I know, it's never too late. But how did your relationships change once you discovered your inner story or your inner child story?
That's a great question. Because the first thing I had to do is realize that story was made up. I made the story up. Little Jerry made the story up to get attention and love, which we really didn't get. Nobody else knew the story going on. I didn't even know the story. The first thing I had to do was realize it was a made-up story. And it took a while. And I talk about it in the book, how I caught myself likable and subordinate. And I'd say, oh, I did it again. I'd catch myself and I'd go, oh, I did it again. Then I'd catch myself being likable to people I had no reason to be likable to.
Right.
Because I was like the people who didn't deserve to be liked. Right?
But it was your pattern at this point, yeah.
Well, I felt like I had to be.
Mm-hmm.
But now then after I realized it, yes, I realized, well, that's the pattern. And eventually I pulled myself out of that. And I'd like to say that the 7 words I said goes in a circle. It's like a clock, and instead of numbers, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then it gets repeated. So I like to tell people, like, once you pull out that 3rd word, right, and say, I don't have to be likable anymore. People don't need it. I throw that 3rd word away, and there's like a gear. 1 into 2 into 3. Once I get rid of that, I never get this. Like I've taken the gear out of the mechanism, if you will, and that's gone. So, and there's a funny story in the book about the moment that I realized that I didn't have to be liked for anymore, and it was this incredible revelation where I saw everything basically in slow motion. Where in the past I would have gone to the likable subordinate
cycle.
I didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I broke the cycle. And that moment, so clear that, oh my God, this is what I did the whole life. And how good it felt to do that. I literally was sitting on the bench and high-fiving myself.
Okay. You were happy for yourself, congratulating yourself.
I broke this lifetime of sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
Broke that sabotage, and from that point on, I didn't have that sabotage anymore, and I don't have it anymore. And I don't go into relationships feeling like I have to be this subordinate person. So when I did the 7 words, a friend of mine said he knew that was going on with the panic attacks and all that. And I was at his house. And so tell me what's going on. So I told him, I said, I came up with this 7-word thing. And it turns out it was my whole life, 7 words. So he said, well, tell me about it. So I had a napkin at his house, and I drew out this set of work thing on this napkin. And he looked at it. He said, "I can relate to that." What?
Wow. Wow.
And he said, "Yeah, but that bicycle is not my word. I can't relate to that. I can't relate to support it. But it makes sense to me." And I started going through work with it. So to get attention and love, did were you like this? Do this, or did you do this? Did you do this? And I started writing down these words.
Okay.
So I
That's
said to
how
you,
you end up getting the
yeah,
person to know their third word.
right. I said, "Oh, do you have to be good? No, did you have to be?" And so I said, "What is if you have to be get attention and love from your mom? You had to be whatever." And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, he blurts out the word appease.
Oh,
And I said, "Dude, when's the last time you used the word appease in a sentence?" He said, "Never." I said, "Where'd that come from?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, I know your mom. I know your ex-wife. I know your girlfriend now. That's what you do. You appease people."
Mm.
And he's like, "Yeah, you're right. I do appease." And then we went through this whole rigmarole of how we get. Turns out his sick really happens to be sabotaged. He sabotaged all his relationships by appeasing.
Mm. Wow.
And
And
so once we that word, he went through my whole life with that word. But I know how crazy.
wow, because you wouldn't think that, appeasing would even sabotage a relationship. But when you think deeply on where it's coming from, wow. Now, when
Right?
did you
And it's
realize
coming from
that?
a place of,
Uh-huh.
God,
Go ahead.
I said when appeasing, even he didn't want to appease. Here's the perfect example. He builds luxury homes and does luxury remodels. He's a contractor. So the reason with how we got this sabotage was I said, "So tell me how things fall apart in relationships or at work sometimes." And said, "Well, it's the same thing happens with my relationship as it does at work. I appease people, which means I do stuff that I know is the right thing to do, but they want this way, so I do it for them." So I said, "Well, give me an example." Well, when somebody needs an addition to their home, and I'm making up a story, like 40,000, they say we have $40,000 in 4 weeks, and he knows in the back of his mind it's 50,000 in 5 weeks, but he appeases them by saying it's 40,000 in 4 weeks because that's what they want.
Mm.
Then when it comes down to the contract, it's 5 weeks and 50,000. The people freak out, but you said you can do it for 40 in 4 weeks. That's the sabotage. So he
Oh.
overpromised and underdelivered.
Mm.
And he
Wow.
did that in his marriage. He did that with his fiance, right? Uh, he's going to be a certain way because that's what they want. But it's not really what he wanted. But he felt like that was his way by appeasing. It was going to keep keep the love alive. It didn't work.
Wow. Oh my God, there's so many questions. I wish we had a 2-hour podcast because this is
Uh,
so interesting to me because I want to know, like, when did you realize, okay, this is something that everyone needs? And I want to know what can readers take away from this? And then I want to know, oh my God, what's like, when can I, dive into this? And can each individual find their own word from reading your book, their own 7 words from reading your book?
Many people have, yes. And I like to say that some people are auditory.
Yeah.
So if they hear their word, the light bulb will go off.
Mm.
Some people are visual.
Yeah.
They have to see it. Some people are kinesthetic.
Yeah.
They have to feel it.
Yeah.
So, and I talk about, look, if you feel like you're a auditory person, read the words, come up with the words that you think might be you, have somebody outside read them to you, you can hear them. Or if you narrow it down, maybe 2 or 3 or 4, ask the person you're in relationship with to know you well, because they're going to know what you're.
Yeah.
I'll give you some of the third words that you can be, and there's 32 of them. So some people have to be good. Some people have to be nice. Some people have to be perfect. Some people have to be givers or giving.
Mm.
Some people have to be self-sufficient, or some people have to be overachiever. Now, people say, "Well, I wish I had different words. I wish I had different third words." And I tell people, well, in your next life, if you get reincarnated to another family, then you might have different words, but these are your words. But you created the word inside your nuclear fission that you with.
Yeah.
So your brothers and sisters have different third words with you. You and I talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if
I can't wait to do this exercise with my brother and sisters.
Yeah. And if you have 8 siblings, all 9 of you are going to have a different third word. You have to.
Yeah.
And I know we look at our say, oh, I'm so different than my brother, my sister, I'm different than all my siblings. Yes, you are. Because you have to be the perfect one, or the good one, or the overachiever, or the quiet one. Quiet is one of the words. Or obedient is one of the words.
Mm.
The obedient one. My brother or sister, self-sufficient one. They all made up their word.
Yeah.
We all make up our word.
Yeah.
But once we understand that we didn't make them up, they're not true, that's when we can start seeing. I don't have to be.
Right. It's just a story or a word you create to soothe yourself and to survive that period. Because
right.
At 3 years old,
right.
This is when it starts, and
right.
We need to get through whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to say I got married when I was 3. I wonder why it didn't work.
Wow. I just want you to consider coming back because this is deep and interesting and so helpful. And I really want the audience who is leaning in right now thinking, oh my goodness, what are my 7 words? What am I holding on to? And how can this help me? Because, when you hear something new like this, at first you're thinking, okay, this was you, but then how can this help me? You start to put yourself in that picture to see, oh my God, if this were me, what would my 7 words be? And then, you start to think about it, but I would like for people to get this book, guys. I would love for you. This was such an incredible journey that you took us on today that I'd like for each of us to uncover our own 7 words, you know, the way how you and I worked on it, the way you went through it just now, and how you talked about how mindfulness and meditation became one of the key to your healing. So I also want people to get deep into that. Guys, you just got to get the book, okay? You got to get the book. And you have to come back.
Oh, I will definitely come back.
Yeah.
I like to say that the book is about meditation meets science, meets metaphysics, meets my 3-year-old inner child. That's all this kind of morph.
Yeah.
Into this thing.
Guys, the book is Your 7 Words to a Happier You by Jerry Giordano, and you are going to be changed from the inside out with this book. Jerry, thank you so much for coming, but I can't let you go yet.
Can I give the website real quick?
Yes, please give them the website, and then I'm going to come back to, there are 3 questions that I love to ask each of my guests, and I can't wait to hear your answers to these 3 questions. So first, please give us the website where they can, grab their copy and how they can follow you and learn more about who you are.
The website, your7words.com. Your, the number 7 words.com. And it goes into a little bit of detail, background. You can order the book if you want, or you can email me on there if you'd like. But that's where the information is.
Excellent.
And I'm on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all that.
I got to follow you on Instagram. What's your Instagram name?
It's all Jerry Giordano author.
All right. I guess I'll grab that later because I don't want my phone to start making noise. Okay. So before you go, what's one bold promise that you can share with the audience?
Okay. I'm going to kind of read it. So
thank you.
So my bold promise is, once you understand how people pleasing sabotages your sense of self, because people pleasing is an unconscious intent that's controlled, you will look at giving, especially to people who only are takers, in a completely different way.
Ooh, you went deep.
Well, and went deep. I posted something about people pleasing being a form of control. I got a lot of
backlash.
I got a lot. Not people who agreed, but there were some that didn't. But I, as a recovering people pleaser, because I had to.
Yeah.
And I gave people who just took, and it never served me. I just felt like, well, I keep giving and giving, I'm not getting back and not getting back. Being in relationship with a narcissist, or I was, and so it was just give, and when am I going to get something back?
Right.
So that was. And again, once I figured out why I had to give. So that's I know it's a little deep.
But I appreciate it because sometimes people come up here and they don't want to be too transparent. But boy, this is how else can you grow if you don't go deep? So what bold statement can you share with the audience that will cause a paradigm shift?
Bold statement. Everyone listening to this can learn how to meditate. Every person who meditates now said the same thing before their practicing. I can't slow my brain down. I can't slow this machine down. It's too fast. Yes, you can.
Yes.
The biggest obstacle, false belief that your brain is different than people who meditate. It's not.
This is your
As a
sign
person,
to meditate, because I know somebody out there, you tried it for a minute and you're like, oh, I can't do this. But every person can just practice.
For 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years. And every time I was like, oh, I'm so bad at this. I can't meditate.
I still battle with it. Even when I'm succeeded for like, I've gained traction. I started with 1 minute, I went to 2, then 4, then 8, then 16, and then half hour, and then all of a sudden I can't do it. I get afraid. I get into a space where I feel like I'm giving up too much.
Yep.
Too much control.
Again, once our ego doesn't want us to meditate, because our ego has nothing to control when we're meditating, because there's nothing there.
Ooh.
So there's nothing on. So our ego says, oh, nothing to see here. I'll go take a rest. But that's where the meditation is. And our mind's going to wander. We could do a whole show on meditation today.
I'm thinking, Lord, you got to come back. Is this your only book? We're just gonna have to use this same book as an excuse to come back.
We can talk about meditation because I've taught a lot of people how to meditate, or to get over that hump thinking you can't meditate.
So we'll focus on meditation the next one. See? Yeah. Okay. Next interview.
All right.
And what's one bold move that you'd like to make in the future?
Well, bold move. I talked to you this a little bit earlier. Hold in-person retreat across the country, with hundreds attending. Some will do their word right there. Others will have their word and get insight into how their words have sabotaged them. And my goal is to bring 7 words to 10 million people.
I am blown away by that, because as I told you, this year I have an author's seminar. Les Brown is going to be our keynote speaker. And I wish you could come if you have time. And I mean, it's in May. So if you have time, it's going to be an incredible experience. But for next year, we're going to 10x that number. Well, not 10x that number. Nope. We're going to do 500, because 10x would be 2,000. So we're going to do 500, because I want to take it at a manageable increment at a time. So this next year, we want to do 500. We are going to do 500 people in the audience. And I'd love for you to come and do this exercise with them. I'm going to read the book and do this exercise with my siblings this month. And I'd love to share it with my VIPs, the intimate group. But I would love for you to come to New York and do this for this big group of people. It's going to be so amazing to see everyone working out their 3rd word and their 6th word and getting their 7 words before they leave. That's going to be incredible, amazing. I'm looking forward to that. And then my ultimate goal is to host the same authors conference at Madison Square Garden. And so that's a lot of people. So if we could do 500 this next year, then we'll 10x it the next year, and then 10x that. So that's down in the future, but I would love for you to be a part of that each and every time. Okay. See, I don't just ask you, what's your bold statement? I make bold statements too, honey.
Hey, listen. Go bold or go home, right?
That's right. Especially here in the Bold Authors community. Oh my goodness. Jerry, thank you so much for being vulnerable, for your honesty.
And if anybody has any questions, your7words.com. You can there's an email info where you can email me and you can answer questions for if you like, or If you've done your words and you have questions about your words, feel free to reach out. Because
Wow.
people do have questions. Well, how does this relate to this? Or how does this relate to my current relationship or my past relationship? They're all connected.
Yeah. Guys,
So,
if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend. And if you have an inclination or a buzz that you need to write a book, contact me at authordnicholson@gmail.com or go to our website at boldpublishings.com and make arrangement to be in a meeting with me so we can discuss how to bring your book idea out of your head into the published reality, into the world, so that you can be living your dream and helping people becoming more hopeful and inspiration to those people, because your story matters. Your story matters. Look how Jerry had, this idea, and I'm telling you, we worked on my 7 words and I was shook, and I know that it's going to make an impact on my relationships moving forward. But wait until I read that book, because after I read that book, I am going to, of course, I mess with my siblings all the time, but this time it's going to be a beneficial, stretching them into finding out what's hindering them, what's causing hurdles into being the best version of themselves. So thank you so much, Jerry. What would you like to share with the people before you go? One last thing before you go.
I guess the one thing I could say is that you do your words, understand how you've gone through your life from childhood and all. You feel a little vulnerable at first,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why when you do it with your sibling, they might pull back a little bit because it's vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I talk to you about your words, I don't share your words with anyone, but I have done it in groups. People trust each other, and everybody's doing it. But there is a vulnerability that goes with it because it's almost like a raw nerve.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can get over that place of realizing that, wait a second, this is helping me, this is making me understand. And you talked about it earlier. Everybody says my life is not the way I want. People say, well, flip the script, change your story. Well, you can't change your story unless you know what your story is.
Right.
Then you're able to change it. Now you understand. So pretty much my final thought.
Thank you. Very profound and super helpful. Thank you so much for coming up here and sharing so much time with me. I really appreciate you. And I'm looking forward for the follow-up. Okay?
Yes.
Part
Absolutely.
2 coming soon. Yeah. And then it will be after I've read the book and after I've messed with my siblings. So
Yep.
Can't wait to report on that.
I'm still here, so whenever you want.
Thank you so much again. And I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to our part 2. Bye, guys. Thank you for listening. And please, if this has resonated, just share and subscribe to my channel. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for the Bold Book of the Day with Dr. Denise Nicholson, a central hub and a safe space for authors to share their stories. Follow Dr. Denise on Facebook and Instagram at Denise Nicholson, or go to denisenicholson.com. Remember, no one can share your story better than you.